Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. If you're watching this live or watching it on replay, thank you for being here. I want to introduce you to our guest. Jared comes from the Evening Woodworker. He has a YouTube channel approaching 80,000 subscribers. He's got a lot of subscribers or followers on Facebook. He's got a lot of followers on Instagram, and he's growing a business really quick. You also want to check out his website. He has several nice plans for sale there and some great information. Let's bring on Jared. Jared, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Have you had a good week so far? You're one
Yeah,
day in?
so far so good.
Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate you coming on. I see we've got some great people already watching. David and Alien Leader are already here, and I expect others to join, but we are at a special time. Again, I appreciate you coming on. I do want to take the time to remind our audience that the chat is where it's at. If you are here live with us, chat it up with each other. And if you have a milestone, put an M at the beginning of your comment and we'll celebrate with you. And if you have a question for Jared, put a Q at the beginning of your chat comment. And that helps me identify when we get them answered. So, Jared, I want to talk about thumbnails tonight, but before I do, I want to get a little information about you. Um, how long have you been in woodworking?
I started doing woodworking, I think probably about in high school, maybe just before that. So it was something growing up that we did to make gifts for each other, like my siblings, Christmas time. And then took some shop classes in middle school and high school, and then took one in college, and then it continued from there. So it's been kind of a lifelong passion.
Yeah, for those that haven't visited your channel yet, you've got a statement up there: engineer by day, woodworker by night. Did I get it right?
That's right.
Yeah. So you went to school. Where'd you go to school?
So I grew up in the Seattle area, and then I went to school at BYU down in Utah.
Okay.
Um, there, while I was doing engineering, I took a furniture design class for fun. And so all of my woodworking before, when I was in high school, was more just functional. Let's just make a shelf. It's a square shelf. Here's a piece of plywood. Put some edge trim on it. But then after taking that furniture design class, then I learned a little bit more about the different styles. You can do a green and green style. You can do arts and crafts style. All the different kinds that you could do. And then it was like, oh, you can actually make these shelves look good in addition to be functional. So that's when I kind of developed that appreciation for the style of it.
Yeah, that form and function. Whenever you combine the two, you can do some miraculous things with wood, right? I mean, you can be really creative and follow an established technique, or sometimes have to create your own jig to make it work. But that's great. Now, whenever I put the announcement out there that you were going to be on the channel tonight, Drew Witt from Woodwork said to make sure to ask you about your love for Festool.
The irony. Yeah, we had a good conversation at Workbench Con about Festool. There was a group there. There were some diehard Festool fans. And so let me give you a little background. So first of all, as you said, I'm an engineer and I like to design stuff. And I think the marriage of form and function, as we were saying before, is kind of that's the perfect design. You got a great function and a great design. But you also have to make it reasonable for your audience and your market. And certain markets, they have deeper pockets and they can afford all kinds of fancy stuff. So the first time I saw a Festool sander, I remember going in the store, I think it was at a Woodcraft or something. I went in there and I was like, oh, cool, this is green sander. What is this one about? And I looked at it and I was like, okay, it's kind of a new design. That's kind of cool. And then I looked at the price tag and it was like, like, how is this even possible to sell a sander at this price? And so that to me was my first reaction to Festool, and I think a lot of people have that sticker shock. I have heard great things about the caliber of the tools, the design, the function. Everybody that uses them loves them. Uh, I just think it has a very high bar to entry, and at some point I may get a couple, but it's right now. I feel like I don't connect with my audience as much with Festool everything. You have to be somebody that's doing this full time or all the time to be able to justify spending $1,200 on a sander.
It's that sticker shock is real, and I've held the tools. They seem extremely high quality. I see others using them, and I am happy that there is a market for that type of tool. It's I think it's great that you can be in this hobby or trade, whatever you consider woodworking, um, anywhere from the Harbor Freight level all the way up to the Festool level and beyond whenever you get into the more commercial items. But if you're going to get up to that level, you're going to have to pull some money out of the pocket.
Yeah, it's definitely a wide range. But that's one of the nice things about woodworking that I think a lot of people miss the point of. When you just watch woodworkers on YouTube, you may just see the Festool, you may see the saw stop, the high end stuff that's really expensive. But you don't need that to be able to build stuff and to be able to get into the hobby. And so, like, I got a saw stop because of the safety aspect and because it's a high quality tool. One of my hobbies, in addition to woodworking, is I play the piano, and so my fingers are very important. So that's something where it was like, okay, this is a good insurance for me to make sure that I'm being safe here. But one of the things that I talked about I did a video reviewing it about, is it worth the extra cost? Because it's very expensive.
Right.
And one of the things that I talk about is that it's really about learning how to use the tool properly. It's not something where you need a saw stop to do woodworking or you need the high-end tools to do it. You learn how to use it with the smaller stuff and with the cheaper stuff that does a decent job and can get you kind of from point A to point B. And then as you grow and develop your skills and maybe earn some money from it, then you say, hey, I can upgrade something here. It's just like buying a cheap car when you're just learning how to drive, or even when you're in college. And then as you get older and you get a little bit more money, then you say, okay, it's time to upgrade. It's still getting you from point A to point B, but it may just be a little more comfortable.
Right. Yeah. And I'm cheap. So I don't see me buying many Festool products in the near future. There may come a day, especially depending on the tool. I am interested in getting a saw stop at some point because, I don't play the piano, but I play the radio, and I'd like to keep my digits, and it's another step of safety feature. You can buy an old used car that doesn't have airbags. I'd rather my family travel in a vehicle that does have airbags. So it's all about safety there. But beyond that, the saw stop makes a nice saw with the fence is good for that price range, and you can have repeatable cuts without all the setup time that I take sometimes whenever I'm making something with the saw that I bought, for less than $200. So the quality is there and the safety feature is there, I believe.
Yeah. And that's something where even with the old tools, like I had a Craftsman, an old Craftsman table saw that, the motor's hanging off the back. It's like contractor size style. And that works great. And it had the built-in fence or the one that came with it that clamps at both ends. And I never really enjoyed that because of the whole, if it clamps at both ends, then you've got to make sure that you're cutting it nice and straight. Because otherwise, if it clamps like this, you're pinching the blade and you're burning everything. And it's like, I don't know why this thing isn't working. So on my Craftsman saw, I got an aftermarket fence. that probably cost more than the saw. I think it was like a $300 fence. But I put that on it, and then that made it, that was a huge upgrade, night and day difference on that. So then it was a very functional saw, and I just really got this current one because of the safety features on it. So
yeah, and that's true with a lot of tools, right, Jim? And you can get upgrades, and whether they're homemade or purchased, to increase the flexibility and repeatability of the tool. So that's always a good idea as well. So you're making content now, and you've been woodworking a lot longer than you've been making content. Where's your passion right now? Is it in the hobby of woodworking or the hobby / business of content creation?
I think for me, the passion is in the creativity. And I do like having, for any of the creative stuff that I'm involved in, I like to have something at the end of the day to show for it. That's one of the things that I like about woodworking as a hobby, is that you can finish a project at the end of all of this time and you have something to show for it. There's a lot of hobbies that you don't have anything to show for it. Like one of the things I do with my kids sometimes is fly in RC airplanes, or go out to the park and we have a couple planes that we fly around, and it's fun and everything, and we have a good time. But then at the end of it, it's kind of like, now I have a dead battery. That's all I have to show for it. But when I'm done woodworking, I have projects that I built and I can use. So for me, the passion is in the creativity. So yes, like I would say between content creation and woodworking, I probably enjoy the woodworking a little bit more. But making the videos and making the content is also a creative exercise. So there's still some fun there in being like, okay, how can I tell this story? How can I make it engaging? How can I keep people involved in it? So I would just a little bit edged out woodworking over the content creation.
So you're quickly approaching 80,000 subscribers, and then it won't be long, you'll be at 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's always a milestone, and kids recognize that because you get that silver play button. Is that something your family is excited about you getting? Your kids are excited about you getting, or they're like, Dad's doing something out there in the garage?
My middle schooler, my oldest is in middle school, and he thinks it's pretty cool that his dad does YouTube because he can show it to his friends at school. And then I went to career day at the middle school, and I asked, okay, I can talk about being an engineer or I can talk about doing YouTuber. And they're like, I think we wanted you to talk about YouTube. But that was the teachers that said that. So they know where the interests of the kids are. But
sure.
yeah, so I did that, and it was kind of fun to be cool in my kids' eyes. But yeah, it's I would say for me, the 100,000 subs is a big milestone. That's something I've thought about. I actually have a friend that does a course that on YouTube that's called the 100,000K Club, or 100K Club. And the whole point of it is to get people to grow their channels and stuff. And so that is a huge milestone for me, but I do realize that outside of YouTube, nobody really cares. It's a big deal for us, but that's it.
Yeah, if YouTube continues to grow for you and you build the business of this social media content and so forth, right now, do you foresee that you would ever give up your day job and be a full-time content creator?
I've thought about that. At this point, I don't know. I would have a long ways to go to be able to get to that point. I know of people that have channels, the 800, 900,000 subs range, and they are still doing their day job. So for me personally, like I have 5 kids and family, so I've got to make sure that I have a consistent way to put food on the table. So the hard part with YouTube and with content creation is that there's a lot of ups and downs. And so sometimes sometimes your videos get more views and you do really well, and sometimes they get less. And so the nice thing with doing it on the side is that I don't have to be all stressed out about, I need to put a video out and I need this to be successful, or we're not going to be able to go get food this week. So I would say for me, I have a long ways to go before I would consider that. So right now, I'm not really looking at it as eventually something to take over my day job, because I also enjoy my day job. So
That's awesome. And others have said that, though, that they don't foresee themselves giving it up, and then the time comes. So I think it's okay either way, right? It's all about what you want and what you're passionate about, and how confident you are in your ability to maintain it. And I've talked to other guests. One thing that needs to be done if you're running a business, social media type business, is make sure you're diversified, that you have different income streams. And I know that you have the plans that you sell on your website, and merchandise that you sell, and you get AdSense. Um, would you mind sharing what other income streams are you trying to create through your YouTube channel and business?
yeah, I mean, that is the idea with a lot of this is, I've done commissioned work for people. I've made projects. Hard part with that is that it's something you have to be actively doing. If you're not building stuff for people, you don't make any money. So all the things that I've been doing have been focused on kind of passive income. And passive is a loose term because making YouTube videos is very active. You have to do a lot of stuff for that. But I just can be making money at night when I'm sleeping. People are still watching the videos. So I do have my YouTube revenue. I have planned sales for my website. I'm trying to grow some other streams. I do have some sponsorships that are slowly developing, although that hasn't been a focus. So I'm looking this year to try to figure out ways I can work that in while still providing value to my audience. Other things, I've started setting up a Patreon. We'll see if that goes anywhere. I haven't gone live with it or anything, but that's always nice. And as part of that, I was thinking of doing kind of a design consultation level on that, because I've had people that have asked me about their designs on stuff and saying, hey, I'm doing a shelf like this, or I'm doing this kind of a cabinet. What do you think of this aspect? I'm usually very, depending on my time and how busy I am, I can usually help with those. But it's something where as I get more and more busy, it's hard to dedicate that. So if it was something where I say, okay, for, I don't know, $50, $100, you get a design consultation with me and I'll call them. That could be another revenue stream, because I think my background of having engineering plus woodworking is something that people could benefit from, designing stuff that's structurally sound. It's always good in furniture.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you sharing that. The uh, Biscuit Tree just commented, and I think it makes sense here. It was interesting at WorkbenchCon, all the big name woodworking YouTubers could walk into a restaurant and no one cared. you know, we we tend to, because we're into it, right? We are always trying to create and share, and so there's certain people that we look up to in our niche. And so whenever we see the Steve Ramseys walk in, we might get a little starstruck or something. But I thought that was interesting. Um, what you mentioned Patreon, and you mentioned having a level for basically doing some consultation, right? And whenever you try to get that going, some others are trying to do like um, courses that they would sell outside of YouTube, like video courses and so forth. Have you looked into any of that? You seem to be very knowledgeable about your woodworking.
Yeah, that's something I've thought about, just doing a course on, beginning woodworking or kind of an intermediate woodworking, maybe. Um, it's just that right now my time I'm focused on getting out. I try to get out a video once a month, and then I'm interspersing some shorts and reels in there, between the video releases. And so at some point I would like to do a course, because I like the idea again of a passive source of income like that. But it's the upfront time that I would need to kind of squeeze out between other activities and stuff. So that's the hard part with it being a hobby.
Whenever you are considering what your next video is going to be, and which one you're going to put next in the pipeline to make, how do you make those decisions, and where do you see the value uh, to your viewer? It's like, if you have two topics, you could make a video on either one. How do you determine which one's going to allow you to bring the most value to the viewer, and thus end up with more views and a more income for you, and better growth of your channel?
That's always the hard question with any YouTubers, trying to figure out what do people want to see, and what are they going to watch. And so the benefit of being I am in my target audience, as kind of middle-aged, family, doing stuff on the weekends and in the evenings. I feel like my audience is similar to me. And so I can look through YouTube thumbnails and topics and stuff, whatever people are watching, and I'll see what looks interesting to me, of things like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's a question I've always had. Like when I did the saw stop video again, I was always curious about, is this really worth the additional cost? Because there's definitely, a markup in price on that for that safety aspect. And so that's one of them. I've seen also other woodworkers that have done stuff with pocket holes used the wrong way, where they're locking it in and can't expand across the grain. And so I did a video on that, because it was something where I've seen people do stuff, I've seen people talk about it, and so it's, I don't know, I'm trying to find the things that people may be confused on or may be surprised about. And then there's always just stuff where I'm building a project, and it's like, I'm building this project and I want to make a video about it. So
Yeah. So let's talk about that video for a minute, the pocket hole video, because pocket holes are a great entry point for joinery for a lot of makers. And I think maybe I'm wrong, but one of the things that was great to get the click on that video for you was, if I remember correctly, there's a picture of a board with another board attached with pocket holes. And, you're basically, I don't remember the exact name of the title, but you're basically saying, don't do this. And it really leads to the intrigue and imagination. What's wrong with that? It's two boards together. The screws go in. Looks like they're clean pocket holes, and it attached two boards together. What's wrong with that? And I think that was a great lead in to that discussion. And then in your video, you presented a lot of information in the video besides just that one point, but you used generated graphics in there and so forth to keep the viewer going. How important was that thumbnail and title to the success of that video?
well, the thumbnail is key to getting people to even consider your video at all. If you don't have a good thumbnail, no one's going to even click on it. So you could have the greatest videos, but if your thumbnail is terrible, then it doesn't really matter. And so, one of the things that I've found on thumbnails is you really need something that's going to create, it's almost an emotional reaction, something that makes people have an opinion one way or the other. So they would have an opinion of either, yes, I agree with that, no, I disagree with that, no, that's a terrible idea, stuff like that. They need to have a reaction to it. And then you kind of click on it because you're like, well, I want to see if either they're telling me I'm wrong or I'm right, all of that. So that's kind of the game that you play with thumbnails, is how do you get people to be curious about it?
Yeah. And, the thumbnails that leave questions in your mind, to me, are some of the ones that drive me crazy, because it's like, it's, he's not giving me the answer. He's making me click on this for me to get the answer, make sure I understand what he's talking about. So
Yeah, those are the
that's a
best.
good thing.
Those are the best thumbnails, is when you are driving, they drives you nuts because you're like, I need to see what this is.
Yeah. The old trick now, but whenever you see the people put thumbnails out there that say, most don't know, or 78% of woodworkers don't know. It's like, what don't they know? You're saying I don't know? I really feel drawn sometimes to watch those.
Yeah, and the hard part, I know those are kind of, when you see enough YouTube thumbnails, it gets kind of frustrating or annoying. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, it feels clickbaity. Um, the the difference is if you can deliver on that, if you can
Yes.
actually provide the answer to that question, then people don't feel like they've been scammed. If you come in and you don't actually provide that, or it's not accurate, then it's bait and switch kind of a thing.
Yeah. If you said most woodworkers don't know this, and then you click on the video and they're like, you can cut a board by pushing it through a table saw. Well, you didn't teach me anything. There's got
Right.
to be value in the content after I click on it, or else I'm going to not subscribe.
Yeah.
um, what? Where do you get your thumbnails are really good, and I appreciate them. Where do you get your ideas for the thumbnails?
Usually, well, I've heard that you're supposed to start with a thumbnail and then make a video around the thumbnail. I've never been able to do that. I usually will be making the video, and at some point as I'm filming or as I'm, in the process of editing, I'll be like, okay, what is this going to look like? What's going to be interesting? What's the most curious, the thing that will make people the most curious about watching this? And then I try to take that. And then it's important, when you're editing something in Photoshop, it looks usually pretty big. Let's see, there I'm centered. Yeah, so you're looking at something this big, and thumbnails are not that big. And so when I'm editing it, I try to also, like, I'll be doing all the details and putting the graphics in and the words, and then I'll shrink it down, zoom out, so it's just the size of a normal thumbnail. And when you do that, then you look at it and say, okay, can this be read? Can you tell what I'm talking about? Do you have any concept of what this is? If I'm scrolling through this, would I be interested in it? And that helps me get kind of a gut check on if it's, if it's a good thumbnail or not. And of course, some of my thumbnails just fail miserably, but I mean, happens to everybody.
Yeah. There's a website called Thumbs Up that enables you to upload your thumbnail for free, and it will show you what it will look like on someone's phone, what it will look like on the, um, the main screen on a computer, and so forth. I like doing that because it not only shows you what it's going to look like whenever it's small, but it also shows you what the title is going to look like. If it's going to have the ... in the right place, that kind of thing.
Oh,
So,
that's good. I need
so
to try that.
That's a nice nice little tool for anybody interested in that. Do have a question here. Biscuitry, do you make multiple thumbnails before you upload a video to switch out? Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, so I'll usually make at least two. And sometimes I need to do better at making them completely different. Sometimes it'll be just different wording or maybe a different picture in the background. But I'll usually do at least two and then look at the first, and I'll post my best one first, whatever I think is the best option. And then after that, I'll give it maybe, I don't know, maybe a day, maybe less. If it's just bombing and that first metric of your click-through rate, if that is pretty low amongst my subscribers, then I'll switch it out for the other one. I know that some I think TubeBuddy does A/B testing. Haven't done that yet. I kind of do my own, manual version of A/B testing. Yeah. Just put up a different one, put up the other one. So, yeah, at least two.
Yeah. TubeBuddy, some people are really sold on it with the A/B testing. I still believe YouTube should allow you to upload 2 or 3 thumbnails whenever you upload it, because they have the real data, and seems like they would want to randomly test things themselves to prove out whether or not it's the thumbnail title combination.
Yeah, there is, and I don't know if this is official, but we were talking about this at Workbench Con, because I think they might be doing that a little bit with shorts, because we've seen the thumbnails change on those. So yeah, we put up one video, if you don't have a certain thumbnail designated on it, sometimes it'll change and it'll find a different part in your video to do the thumbnail of. So I don't know if that's doing A/B testing internally behind the scenes, but
yeah, so they might be evolving to that direction. So that would
I hope so.
That would be good. Let's talk about titles. Whenever you are planning your videos, do you like you said, they're saying now you should make your thumbnail before you make your video, but they also say you should come up with your title before you make your video. Are you doing that?
Usually for the titles, I will come up with those ahead of time, because that's kind of the direction of the whole video. And that's, if I start out the video with a question, and this is just in my mind as I'm planning it, I'll start it out as, a question of, is this worth it? Or I did a video on my bandsaw when I upgraded that, and I said, is it worth buying? I was just thinking, this is my title, I guess first edition, or my first draft of my title, but is it worth paying $1,000 for a bandsaw versus using this $200 one that I got? That was kind of my vision behind it. And so my whole time filming the video and setting it up and writing scripts and all of that was to figure out the answer to that question. And then when I get down to the actual posting the video, putting the title up, I might tweak it a little bit. I found that early on when my channel was smaller, it helped to have a keyword, to have like woodworking in the title, because early on when your channel's young, your YouTube is trying to figure out what you're all about. And they don't, YouTube wants people to watch videos. If they don't know what your videos are for or what the niche is, they don't know who to pitch them to. And so some people have videos that are all over the place, and so YouTube's trying to figure out, well, is this somebody that wants to, do woodworking? Is this like a tool review? Is this, this is a guy talking about now his vacation this weekend? Like, what is this channel about? And so YouTube doesn't know. But if you can really focus on the words in the title and the first couple sentences of your description to get those keywords on every single video, that helps YouTube say, okay, this is a woodworking channel, so let's pitch it to woodworking people. And then you can get more focused audience participation on it. So yeah, that was something that I do. I don't do that as much now, as adding that like woodworking at the end of it. You put like the straight bar and then woodworking after. Sometimes I would do the straight bar and say Evening Woodworker, because then it ties your video to your past videos, other things that say Evening Woodworker on it. So that can help too. But once YouTube knows what your channel is about, then you don't have to do that as much.
Yeah, they're trying to find the right videos for their viewers. And a lot of people think that they should be trying to find the viewer for your video. But if they have a viewer that's interested in your type of woodworking that you're putting out, they're more likely to share your upcoming video with that viewer because they believe it will satisfy that viewer and keep them on the platform, keep them watching ads, or have them pay that premium cost every month. So they want to keep the viewers happy, and we're the ones creating the content, hoping that they match it up with the right people. And I think overall they do, just like Google predicts what you're searching for before you search it. So I got another couple of questions here. Go back to Biscuitry. What CTR are you looking at in the first 24 hours to determine if the video is a success?
That's a good question. I have probably the first time it shows up on the metric, because there's the first hour or two where there's nothing and it's still generating. The first time it shows up, if it's over 10, then to me that's success. That means it's a good thumbnail. And then that's usually the highest. It'll never be higher than that. At least I haven't had any of mine do that. Because then once it starts pitching it to a larger audience, then the thumbnail or that CTR will automatically go down. So I had one video that went viral really quick and have since not been able to duplicate it. But I had one where it went up and it was about 14. And there was that first little bit, but then it dropped down to 4%, 4 something. And I was trying to figure out, why is this so low? But then I was talking to some other people, some other YouTubers. They said that the reason why it goes low then after that is because now it's pitching it to tons and tons of people. It's millions and millions of people that are viewing this thumbnail. So with a larger pool, that click-through rate's going to go down, but the views were still going up really high. So, I mean, I'm good with that.
Yeah. Is that your one that had over 1 million views?
Yeah, that's the one that hit 1 million.
Tips and tricks.
Yeah. Apparently a lot of people are interested in tips and tricks. That one was cool because it was the first probably 2 or 3 weeks. It was the #1 trending video on woodworking. When you search for the term woodworking, it was like the first one that came up.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool to see, hey, it's possible.
Absolutely. That is awesome. Let's see. Biscuitry asked another question. What program do you use for creating thumbnails?
I just use an old version of Photoshop. I have a CS5 version back before you had to pay subscription fees. And so I use that. At some point, I might upgrade to get the full, like the regular Creative Studio paid one for everything. I mean, like the regular subscription version. But right now, the CS5 seems to work well.
Yeah. Do you take photos specifically for the thumbnail?
It depends on what I usually am thinking of the thumbnails or of ideas for thumbnails ahead of time. Sometimes if it's like a tool review, then I will lay out the different tools. Or I did one of, beginning tools for woodworkers, and those ones I laid them out, took the pictures ahead of time. Usually I try to do that, but occasionally I'll do a good screenshot from the video. Like I did one on a bunk bed that I did with a slide. So that one I took a screenshot from the video, and then I had the reaction of my kids' faces when they saw it, and I put all those in the same thing and kind of made the mixture of all of it. So it just depends on the application.
Are you recording in 4K?
No, I'm not. We had lots of discussion about this at WorkbenchCon too, but
yeah, it came up in several conversations.
Yeah. So the only time that I do record in 4K is if I'm doing something on a GoPro, or if I'm doing like a time lapse of something, or if I'm doing a like I have an Osmo Pocket, which is, it's like a camera on a gimbal that is about this big. So it's great for doing, if I just want to grab a camera and do a cool beauty shot or like a zooming shot like that. It's very smooth. And those ones I'll do in 4K just because, especially the time lapses, because then in post you can actually zoom into some part of that screen, like your 4K image. Again, let me get centered here. 4K image is this big, but a 1080p is only a quarter of that. So I can have a slow zoom on my time lapse, and it makes it look like I have a really expensive rig, that's traveling along rails and stuff like that. And it's really just all done in post to zoom in with the time lapse, or a pan with the time lapse. And so that can give a cool effect, but you have to have 4K, otherwise it gets really pixelated. So, but most of my normal shots, I film in 1080, and I have really good lighting. That's one of the important things. Well, I'm getting better at the lighting. That's to make it look good. You really have to have good lighting, and then you can make a 1080 video look very clear and really good.
Now, what do you edit your videos with?
That is Premiere Pro. It's a CS5 that also I got at the same time as I got the Photoshop. So,
okay,
yeah.
Awesome. Alien Leader, who always has good questions, says, when doing a project video, use the before, middle, or complete item in your thumbnail. So he's asking for advice.
I think for the project videos, I usually will do a complete one, something at the end or something that is close to complete. Because if I see a thumbnail of a half-finished project, it doesn't really look that interesting to click on, unless it's something where I almost cut off my finger doing this.
Yeah.
If it's something that is very applicable to that thumbnail, then maybe. But for a project video, almost always I'll do the finished product, something that is like, oh, I want to see how that's built, and then they can go into it and see it later. But one of the things let me just add this in there with videos right now, the thing that's happening on YouTube is people drop off at the beginning of every video, no matter what. And so the way that people are counteracting that is by just jumping right in from like you start it, you say, this is what this video is about. Boom, now we're doing it, and it's just got to be right into it, because otherwise you just lose so many of your viewers. And if you can just grab people and hold on to them because they're like, whoa, he's working already, he's doing this, then, that's one of the keys. So the thumbnail's got to be interesting. They click on it and then they're going, and there's no stop. So that's the style of my videos. Some people can do more of the, let's sit back and have a chat about what we should do on this next step. What do you think? Put a comment in. But I'm more of a go, go, go. Like, let's see it. I don't want to waste people's time. I edit out sometimes my pauses in my speaking because I want to just pack it in there.
Yeah, absolutely. If you ever are trying to get an answer and you click on a video and they spend the first 2 to 3 minutes telling you why they're doing the video or giving an update on why they haven't released a video in 3 months, and I'm there for a purpose, and I want to get to it. And if you're not going to get to it, another video will, so unfortunately that's the mindset of the average viewer now. And that's where we are. So the faster you get into it, Cam from Blacktail talked about that as well. He said it drove him crazy whenever he clicked on a video and they're like, hey, we're going to make a bed frame. He's like, great. And then they spent 2 minutes telling you the history of bed frames and everything else. So
yeah,
I think that's very valid. To Alien Leader's point, though, there are some thumbnails out there where the interest is piqued by a shot that's not the final product, and that might be, if somebody's standing next to a tree and it's like, I made a kitchen table out of my grandfather's tree. Well, they don't have to show you the table; they show you the tree, and you kind of get you interested. Well, how did they cut it down? How long did they have to wait for the wood? How did they dry the wood? How did they mill it? A lot of questions come to mind.
Yeah. Another one I was just thinking of as you were saying that is if you have a build that has a really cool joint.
Oh yeah,
People love to see joinery, especially complex joinery. And you could just have a picture of the joint, which often gets hidden at the end of the build. It's all covered up. And so you don't see the cool joint. But if you show a picture of that coming together and have something saying, oh, but, this is the hardest joint I've ever done or something like that.
yeah,
That could be an in process thumbnail.
absolutely. Let's see. Biscuitry says, do you build the project for the video or create a video to fit a project?
I do both. I have some videos, usually the ones where my views are really low are the ones where I just wanted to build something and make a video out of it. The ones where the views are much higher are usually ones where I've thought about and said, okay, what do people want to see? What is my audience really interested in? So again, for me, this is because it's a hobby and because it's something that's fun for me. I sometimes do videos just because I want to do the video. I don't necessarily say, I know going in, this is not going to be my top performing video, but it's just fun to make it and it's fun to share that story. And there will be some people that really enjoy it. Like the bunk bed video that I just did a couple months ago was one where it was a project video, which there's less and less people watching project videos right now. That one was one that I did that was just fun. Like I wanted to make this bunk bed and I'd been working on it. And a lot of people that commented on that looked at it from that perspective and said, this is a really fun project. It's really fun. You could do this for your kids. But it was not a very high performing video at all. So that was one where I did the reverse. But I have both. I kind of will alternate between the two. If I really was trying to like grow the channel like nonstop, then I would just search for like, what is the interest? What do people want to see?
Some things that may not perform as well, but you gotta have some passion in this too. So if you want to make a video, it's part of the legacy, right? Whenever you have 1 million subscribers, people will still be going back and looking at that bunk bed video if you leave it posted. Which brings me to another question: do you ever unpublish a video, make it private or unlisted?
I have one or two that I'm really close to unlisting, just because they're very old and really have no purpose. So, but usually I keep them up there because, and I'll look at the analytics on it and see the views, because if there's still people watching it and they're still interested in it, then I mean, what does it hurt to keep it up? The only thing would be if you're concerned about, like if you're going to a sponsor. I've heard of people taking down videos for that thing. If they're going to a sponsor and the sponsor wants to see a certain number of views in your last 12 videos, then you may need to take one down if it doesn't perform well. But I mean, for me, it's more of I want to provide value to my audience, and if there's still people watching it, great, I'll keep it up.
Yeah, I have heard different perspectives. Even at Workbench Con, I heard different speakers say different things. I heard someone say, if anybody's watching it, leave it up. And, another successful YouTuber who said, if it's not performing up to the standard of your channel, or if it is off topic at all, make it unlisted. And, you can always bring it back public later. I've had different thoughts about that. I've actually taken some of mine down off of my main channel, where I made them unlisted because they were not getting views and they were off topic. And I was looking at one of the things I'm considering is there's a series I would like to make that I'm trying to plan out, and that series would be different. I don't want to go into details, but it'd be a little bit different than anything I've done so far, but it will still be within woodworking.
Mhm.
But if I do that, I was thinking about taking down some of my DIY videos and just leave up the woodworking videos and see if YouTube will help push out some of my content that way. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, any of the things that you can do to help YouTube understand what your channel is and what it's focused on and who the audience is supposed to be, that's good. And if you have videos that confuse the algorithm to say, well, why are they doing this? Why are they showing the grilling techniques when it's on woodworking? Then that kind of confuses it, and I think makes it so that your stuff doesn't get promoted as much.
yeah, I mean,
Hey, and
I have a video about removing rust. What does that have to do with woodworking? You know,
right, right,
I'm not removing rust from a tool that I use to do woodworking. I
yeah.
was removing rust from a dog cage. It's
Hey,
so
let me just add one thing real quick.
sure.
I'm going to have to stop at the hour mark because I've got to get to a middle school band concert.
They need to reschedule, Jared. All right.
I
No,
told him, I was like, hey, I'm going live.
you went to career day. What else do they want? Okay.
Right.
No, that I understand. Um, so biscuitry, we talked about full time a little bit earlier, but let's ask this question: any thoughts on going full time? If not, what goals do you have for the channel? So, what's your goals for the channel? Assuming at this point you have no plans to go full time content creator, what are your goals for your channel?
Well, my first big goal is to hit the 100,000. That's, like I said, the plaque from YouTube means a lot to YouTubers. It does not mean a lot to anyone else. So even when I tell, my wife or other family members about it, it's like, I'm gonna get this cool plaque from YouTube. And they're like, okay, what are you gonna do with it? It's not a big deal. Whereas, at Workbench Con, everybody's like, yeah, man, that is a cool experience to get that. So, but yeah, so that's the first goal. I want to hit that. And then I want to be able to, I guess, you can have the goals of numbers and size and the growth, but I really want to have the goal of providing value to people. That's been from day one. I want to add value to woodworkers in general and content creators and whoever's making stuff, because I think there's so much satisfaction in just being creative. There's things like there's a part of your brain that if you're not trying to be creative, that part of your brain never actually gets turned on, like it's just kind of stagnant. And there's this place you can get into called flow. It's been described in many ways, but most common one I've heard is flow, where you're just in this psychological state of I'm doing my creative thing, I'm just having fun, and you lose track of time and you lose track of if you're hungry or cold or hot. And that being in that state, I think it's a huge factor in whether or not you're happy. And when people don't get into that state ever, I think there's a psychological negative that happens when you don't get into that place. So if I can help people discover that and share that, then that to me is a goal of my channel. That's kind of a long-term end goal, is I want people to be inspired to be creative. So that's really fun for me. And then, apart from that, that's kind of the, I guess more the inspirational side of my channel goals. But I also do want to make it so that financially there's a benefit. Like I'm making a good side income. It would be awesome if the income from my channel and from other passive streams outweighs my normal salary. So that way I can kind of have my base as my normal salary for my day job, and then my YouTube income would kind of go around and supplement that, and then I can go and travel around the world and go meet woodworkers all over the place. So that's one
Yeah.
other thing. Sorry, let me add one other thing. I had this dream I think would be really cool is to travel around the world to other countries and find woodworkers and find these people that are like craftsmen in, you know, a village in Mexico or, you know, in Honduras that's in some tiny little shop in their basement making some really cool stuff that's very intricate, and kind of interview these people and talk to them and see what makes them happy and, you know, what makes them click, and kind of see how we're all connected as makers and creators. And so that's a dream of mine very far down the road, but I would love to do that, or, you know, do a show on that.
Yeah. That would be that would be an interesting series. That might be your second channel, your next channel, right?
It's right. I just need to
Just
get somebody that'll pay for me to go travel all these places.
it just needs to be self-supportive
Right.
whenever your income is there. Jared, we've got we're almost at the top of the hour. I appreciate you coming on. Are you what is your focus as far as Facebook and Instagram? Is it do you have the same intensity as YouTube, or is that something you want to develop? Where do you want to go with those platforms?
So YouTube has always been my focus because it has a much more direct revenue stream. You have ads that pay you. And so that's always been the focus. Recently, I've started to do a little bit more with Instagram and Facebook, because, especially Instagram, because there's a community there of makers, and there's a lot of just shared creativity that happens on Instagram. So that growth is fun to see. I've been focusing on that a little bit more, especially as they're changing to I mean, within the past couple of years, they've changed to more focus on videos. And so I already have videos. I'm making videos. So I'm trying to grow a little bit more in that area, but yeah, there's not as much direct, you know, correlated revenue from that. Eventually, if it gets big, then I know they have the bonuses, the real bonuses and all that, but YouTube is more consistent for me.
Jared, if you ever need me, reach out. Good luck at the middle school tonight. And as for me, I hear my wife calling. I got to go.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. This is